G'day, this is Steve Hay here, Woodworking Masterclass. Welcome to my workshop and welcome to part 2 of the 6-part series on building a 4x3 bookcase. Just finishing putting the lines in for the shelves, and this episode I'll cut all the dados and I'll show you several ways you can achieve that. Just finish this off and we'll move right along. Now for ease of construction I'm actually using one extra shelf which you won't see, but it makes building these so much easier, and that shelf will actually be on the top here. So what I'll do is let's get a marking gauge and just score across the top there. All right, that's now got the sides of the bookcase set out. There are several ways you can cut these trenches, or dados, or rebates, or slots, or whatever it is you want to call them. We'll do the easiest one first, which will be a saw and a chisel. So you get a saw, or if you prefer you can get a back saw. It really doesn't matter. Knife, square. Yeah, we'll do this one here. First of all, if you're going to saw, a really sharp knife and score some nice lines along that pencil line. Actually on the inside of the pencil line you want it. Clamp it onto your bench and then make a reference line using your chisel. Just run it up the inside of that cut. I haven't got a long paring chisel, I have to go from both sides. Now that's giving you a nice trench or side wall for your saw to lean up against, so you get a nice straight cut. But before you cut, obviously you've got to work out how deep you want to go. Grab a marking gauge. Again, there's no hard and fast rules for this. Just have a look. I'm not even going to measure. Yep, that's far enough for me. So everything I do now, when I'm cutting these dados, they're going to be the same thickness, or the same depth. Okay, I'll cut one with a back saw, and I'll cut one with a Japanese saw. If you're using back saws or any sort of saws, a little bit of candle grease really goes a long way. On the Japanese saw. Remember, Japanese saws cut on the back stroke, not the push stroke, and they cut very, very finely, but also very fast. Try and be as accurate as you can, but if you do go a little bit deeper, it doesn't matter because we're covering that up anyway. Which isn't something you should aim for, but it's nice to know you can hide it. All right, our chisel. Now this is 3/4 inch wide. I do have a 3/4 inch chisel, but I don't like using it on a 3/4 inch wide dado, because if the dado's just a little bit tight or it's got a cranky little bit of grain, I can blow the tops out. So in this case I'll use a 5/8 or a 1/2 inch, and I just start at the side on a bit of an angle. Be careful not to allow the chisel to lean over and gouge into the face. Okay, if I had a paring chisel, I could go all the way through, but I don't, so I'm going to go as far as I can this way, and I'll turn it around and attack it from the other side. See how good a fit it is? This is the thickness of the timber that we're using. That's a pretty good fit. Now the other thing we can use is a dado plane, if you've got a dado plane. Okay, I've got a fence that I've made up, which is double-sided, that I use for moulding planes and dados. Matter of fact, I got the idea from Terry Gordon, from H&T Gordon. Great little bit of gear. Speaking of which, use one of his planes. Now I don't have a 19mm dado plane, but what I do have is a 1/2 inch and a 1/4 inch. So what I'll do is 2 dados, 1/2 inch and 1/4 inch, and that should get us out of trouble. So we'll just pop that so it's up on the line. Get a clamp. Tighten up on the bench. Now the depth I want to go is the same as the other one, so I set this depth to that, which is a little bit deeper. Now one technique I won't be doing because I don't have the space in my workshop, but if you've got a large table saw, you can do these on the saw as well. So there's all sorts of alternatives. First of all, we'll set this one up and we'll do a 1/2 inch dado first. I think if I had a choice of woodworking, this is what I'd choose. It's lovely, it's quiet, you're in touch with your wood, and I don't know, puts a bit more soul into your work, I guess. I think that's about it. Yep. As you can see, it's a nice, crisp 1/2 inch dado. Move it along, line it up, so just these little knickers here line up with that line that we've already cut. Clamp her up, set to the same depth as the 1/2 inch one. Test fit. That's a nice fit. Okay, obviously I have a 19mm. If I'd had a 19mm, would have been quicker, but it just shows you how you can adapt. All right, that's 2 ways. Chisel, that, this. We'll do the top one. This one we'll just use a saw and a shoulder plate, I think. Again, we've got a nice knife reference. Pop it in the vise. And again, you could use a back saw or use a Japanese saw because it's a bit quicker, and cut on the inside of the line you've marked. Bit of raggedy looking bit there, but it's the right depth. It's just a bit ugly on the face here. Now what I'll do is clean that up with a shoulder plane. Now if you've got a Filzner, I think it's a 71 Stanley, that'll do the job. If you've got a 45, Stanley 45 or 55, that'll do the job. If you've got a shoulder plane, this will do the job. And tell you what, as a matter of fact, I was at H&T Gordon the other day and I picked one of these up. So I told Terry I was making a bookcase and he said, well, try this one out. Right fit too. It's a wedge. How does it go together? I think these are bevel up. Ooh. That's very nice. Let's see how it performs. There you go, straight out of the box. Clean up the corners. And there you go. Another one. Okay, another way we can cut rabbits, rebates, dados. Router. Let's make some noise. Now if you're going to set it up, most tables can't handle a big board like this. So what I do is make a jig up that I can use for any routing I'm doing. But what I do is I generally make one for each size router bit, and you'll see why in a minute. So in order to make a really easy router bit, what you do is grab your router, a couple of bits of scrap, some screws, which I've got there, pencil. And again, with this you have to have it precisely at 90 degrees or it won't work for you. Get a piece of pine or piece of scrap, make sure it's got a nice straight, at least one good straight edge on it, and then mark off the size of your foot plate, plus a little bit on both sides. Find the centre, which I've already done, and put a screw in it. Now, this is important too. This has to be dead square. So if you've got a thicknesser, put it through a thicknesser to make sure it's totally parallel. Again, the width doesn't matter. It could be wider than that, it could be narrower than that. And then get some screws. Find the centre of this board. As I've done there, you can see a centre line down there. Line this up with the centre line and then just screw it home. Now get a square, make sure that it is 90 degrees to this board on both sides, dead square. Oh, by the way, I forget which video it was, but I was talking about this great triangle which is made by Underwood, and I bemoaned the fact that unfortunately they only made them in metric. But to my absolute surprise, I got one the other day in the mail and it's inches. So good on you, Raph and Linda. Thank you very much. And if you want to know more about these tools, and they do these fantastic brass rulers as well, check them out, underwood.com.au. Now at this stage, if you wanted, you could whack some glue in it. But what I'm going to do is just put 2 more screws in to hold it in place. Let's double check. Okay, excellent. Now the reason I said I make one of these for each router bit is ease of lining up. Now I've got a 19mm router bit in here, and I'll set this to the same depth as we've set everything else. The first time you use this, you only have to do it once. Get a scrap bit of timber, secure it onto your bench, put this jig on there, clamp that to the bench, grab some safety gear, and then do 2 passes with the router. the other side. Now what you've got is a template you can use as a router whenever you're doing 19mm, because that's the size of the cutter, 19mm rebates. So let's try it out on the bookcase. Now it doesn't matter which side you use, all you have to do now is line up the rebate here with the lines that you've already drawn. Like that. Clamp it to the bench. And round away. This last one, we'll use a hand router. Same thing, knife cuts, mark your depth again using the marking gauge. So now it's just a question of, it's all set here. This bench is not super steady, so it'll move a lot. And then what it is a turn each time, so the blade drops down. And this one's fitted with a smaller blade, but basically works the same way. Wind it down half a turn or a turn, depending on how deep you want to go. And there's a lot of info on the internet if you want to make one of these yourself. In fact, I'll post a couple of pictures. These ones here, a friend of mine in Sweden actually made those, or a friend of Woodworking Masterclass made it and sent me the pictures over. So again, ingenuity in the workshop, and Alan Keane, a bit of timber and, what was it, a U-bolt. Terrific. I'll just check this for width. And again, that's the width we're looking for. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different ways you can go around making these trenches. What I'll do is I'll just finish doing these and the other side, then we'll start talking about the shelves. Well, that's all the Dado's cut. In part 3, I'll be fitting the shelves, and I'll show you another way that you can fit the shelves. We'll also put the back on and start fitting some trim. So until next time, this is Steve pulling the shed door down on yet another episode and saying, remember to keep it sharp, but more importantly, keep it safe and enjoy your woodwork. And if you like what we do, please like us on Facebook, or if you'd like to join the Woodworking Masterclass e-workshop, it's free, sign up there, and there's some bonus value to be had. Bye for now. G'day, Steve here, Woodworking Masterclass. You know, when I need hardware or any bits and pieces, this is where I come. Masters Parkinson, near Browns Plains in Queensland. But with almost 60 stores, nearly Australia-wide, there's bound to be one near you. So why don't you do as I do, go to Masters for your hardware. And if you see me in the Parkinson store, say g'day.